So we know how to protect communications. We know how to protect, and we also know what's available, right? So satellite imagery is going to give you a fair amount of information anyway. So the question is, okay, well, why the hell was this thing, which was as tall as the Statue of Liberty, why was it floating around up there with an array of antennas, obviously there to collect? But it went over there. It went over Omaha, or near Omaha, where we've got U.S. Strategic Command and Offutt Air Force Base. And, you know, the U.S. government, the military was like, well, we don't believe, after the fact, after we shot it down, they're like, we don't believe that it was collecting, you know. And we took measures to prevent it from collecting. And not only that, we didn't shoot it down at the beginning because we were monitoring its capabilities and learning from that. Now, part of that is true, right? If you've got a target, you identify a target, unlike with law enforcement in the intelligence world, you let that run, right? Because you want to learn everything you can about that target. You know, who's there to support it? What is, you know, what's that
How do
look
they
like?
learn? How do they know that? Can they figure out what it's transmitting? Can they tune into it?
Most of it's signals intelligence and capabilities. It's not really imagery that you're getting from it, although that's part of it. But, you know, so I have no doubt that, you know, because everyone was saying, well, why wouldn't you just shoot the fucker down when it showed up over Alaska on the 28th of January, or when we became aware of it initially. And, you know, because we live in this highly partisan world, everybody was saying, well, because Biden's inept and, you know, they didn't know what they were doing and they let it float all the way across the states. So you can't discount the argument that says, well, part of it is we let it go because we were gathering intelligence ourselves from their capabilities. It's always interesting to know. It's just like when we, here I go disappearing down a rabbit hole, when we lost that platform, that air asset, during the Abbottabad raid, right? And we had to leave it behind. And they destroyed, you know, to the degree they could, everything that was in it of interest. But the platform itself was of interest, right? It was because the two things that are important nowadays are stealth and speed. And, you know, there was a stealth design involved there. And there's also material science that's interesting. So left it behind after they bagged bin Laden, literally. And then 3 days later, the Pakistanis had invited the Chinese to come in. And they were swarming all over that helicopter, right, gathering intelligence. So you always, if you have the opportunity to observe a target, I guess, like I said, you know, then you do. And you can gain intelligence from. So I'm not one of those people who said, they should have shot it down immediately, because I don't know what they were getting from it. But I do know that the purpose of the balloon was to gather intelligence on us, on our sensitive facilities to some degree. So anyway, and then they sent all the remains after they recovered them off the coast of South Carolina to wherever, Quantico. And that was kind of the last we ever heard of it, right? Because we've all got attention deficit disorder. Nobody wants to, you know, think, okay, what did we learn? Can we do a hot wash on it and figure out, and to what degree can you tell the public what the hell was going on, right? Because honestly, I don't know that we ever would have learned about it if it hadn't been so large and, you know, members of the public hadn't seen it or spotted it. So
what altitude was it hovering around at?
It went, it cut a path through a couple of other bases, Minot and I forget where else it was to the south of there, but the fact that it hovered over a period of time over Malmstrom, right, is really all you need to know, right? Because if it's a weather balloon, you know, it doesn't. I guess one point being, you know, we never really pushed the Chinese regime under Xi for anything, right? We haven't forced the hand on the pandemic, and we're going to have another pandemic. So it would be nice to know what the fuck actually happened, right? Not to disappear down.
Why do you think we're going to have another pandemic? Everybody keeps saying that.
Yeah, well, because
it's very disconcerting. We haven't had one in 100 years, not a legitimate one.
Well, not to toot my own horn, which I guess, you know, that would be an interesting thing if you could do that. But it was a few years back when we were talking, and I said, you know, we'll have the next big thing will be a pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And someone had pointed that out to me. I'd forgotten about it, but they sent it to me. And so my point back then and the point now is that it's bound to happen, right? We're an increasingly shrinking globe. There's more people. We're in contact. We're, you know, with everything that goes on, right? Whether it's in the natural based or just what we're doing in biotech and pharma. it's bound to happen. And so I guess you'd think that if we were serious-minded, we would demand answers, and we wouldn't just allow the Xi regime to just shrug it off constantly, right? I mean, you know that there would be a massive debrief on this whole situation if it happened in the U.S. or the U.K. or, started in Australia or wherever, right? The rest of the world wouldn't let it go. But there's something about it. We never push the Chinese regime to the degree that we need to get an answer. So the point being, it's the same with the damn balloon.
Is it because we don't think we'll ever get an answer and it's kind of a waste of time? Because it's not like they're transparent.
Part of it. Yeah.
They would just not tell us the truth.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. It's like doing business in China. If you're investing in a pseudo state-owned enterprise or whatever, you always know there's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 sets of books, right? It's always they're just very good at obfuscating, and they also think they don't need to answer. We don't care. They don't care. And Xi believes that they are still on, despite some problems in their economy, they're still on the slow march to the top of the food chain. So he certainly doesn't care. Anyway,
do you think anything would be different if someone else was in office?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say if we got, if Trump or, a Republican was in office that we'd get a different result. I don't think so. We've had sort of a unsatisfactory relationship related to China for decades. Right? We haven't, no administration has really pushed back appropriately against their theft of economic intelligence or research and development or whatever. So all those things keep happening, and we never make the effort, right? I mean, look at some of the things they're doing now. I've gotten bizarrely focused on the issue of we've talked about this before, of critical minerals, right? Mm-hmm. Because one of the things that I find really interesting is this push towards net zero, carbon production and getting rid of fossil fuels, stopping fossil fuels. Well, you can't stop fossil fuels and regulate mining out of existence at the same time. You've got to do one or the other to fuel production, to fuel manufacturing, to heat people's homes, to produce whatever you're going to produce. And so if we want to get rid of fossil fuels, by definition, you have to increase mining of critical minerals.